Hello, everyone. I am Coach Anne Ventura, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you my very special guest, Phil Escott. And hello, Phil. It's such a pleasure to have you around. And I'm so happy you are doing my first video because you got a really special place in my heart for several reasons. And for those of you who are not familiar with you, could you talk a bit about yourself and your background, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Anne. Lovely introduction. And it's always so good to speak to you. We've spoken many, many times in the past. Yeah, well, my story is basically very interested in health and diet and fitness and spirituality and everything for about 30 years, part of which took me down the whole vegetarian route, which I was for pretty much 30 years, and then vegan on and off at the end of it. And how sick it made me. And, 2010 just crippled with rheumatoid arthritis. And then gradually coming out of the whole vegan phase and getting into ketogenic diets, and then 2015 going full carnivore. And the benefits that I've had since then are incredible. And it's been lovely since then to be able to consult with other people and help them to do the same thing. And the healing we see on this is fantastic. Not just me, but I mean everybody else in this space who's advising people on carnivore diets, and how we never needed the whole grains and seed oils and 5 a day that everybody tells us we do need. So that's my story in a nutshell, really.
Thank you, Phil. What I'd like to talk about is emotional healing. So you use the subtraction method with the food. Now, how did you get to use the subtraction method with the emotions? Because that has a part in your healing, didn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I find that some people, they can just change their diet and they get better. There's whole a sort of wheel of health, I see it as, with different spokes. And, if you break one spoke or 2 spokes, sometimes you don't really notice, but you break 3 or 4 and then the wheel collapses. And people have different weaknesses in different spokes. And I would say the spokes are everything really in our ancestral nature. Diet, artificial light that we have now, EMFs, toxins that come in from the environment, and of course, toxic emotions and fears and false beliefs. Back in the old days when we were all in tribes and we all knew each other's faces and we didn't have 4,000 friends on Facebook that we'd never met, back in those days, we ate the right things. We had our feet on the ground. We were grounded. We had no artificial light. We had no stresses about mortgages and having our house repossessed by the bank. If we wanted a house, we built one, and that was it. That was our house. We had no posters up all over the place saying you have to have this body type, or you need to work hard and save, or it was all nonsense. That's come in recently. And so back in those days, in a sort of tribal community, we would know who we were going to be. The shaman was probably the son of another shaman and the grandson of another shaman. And the medicine woman the same, and the hunter the same. If not, it was what they wanted to do, and they learned the trade and off they went and did it. And they didn't sort of wonder whether they should be a banker or a YouTube star or something like that. They weren't always worrying about their position in society. And men were men and women were women as well. And there was nothing in between. And, all of these ridiculous things that have happened recently. So to me, the whole idea of subtraction, it's the complete opposite to the medical system, where when you get sick, they want to add something. They want to add a pill, or they want to sort of add an operation, or they want to, all of these things. Whereas if you take away the things that are causing the problems in the first place, and on a physical level, that's sort of mitochondrial dysfunction at a very subtle level in the cell, this can lead to all sorts of autoimmunity, cancer, all sorts of problems, and even to mental illness. When the gut is deranged, and the link between the gut health, the microbiome, and mental illness is pretty much established now. And so the body has its healing systems, and it will never have the healing systems if you go to a doctor and you just say, right, I'm sick, and he gives you a pill, because we are never sick because of a deficiency in some type of chemical that they give us. For a while, if you're lucky, it can cover up symptoms, then it blows up in other areas and ruins your liver and detaches your retina, or whatever these awful medications do. And so we want that lazy thing. We want one pill. We want one quick solution. But this is never the solution. We have a lot of work to do. When we get to the point where we have a physical illness or a mental illness, we have a lot of work to do. And the mental is often linked to the physical, and the physical linked to the mental. So in my own healing, when I started to mess around with diet, and then I was calming things down with cold thermogenesis and grounding and all of that sort of thing, it was all great. But in the end, I had to really look at what I was doing subconsciously to myself, and how I was wrecking certain parts of my body. Now, this might be a little bit sort of woo-woo for some people, but there are a couple of great books written about this, at least two. There's Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, I think it's called. And there's also one that I love, which is Inner Seagull, INNA Seagull, The Secret Language of Your Body. And what I had, arthritis, it's a very interesting one, because it can affect so many parts of the body. And I noticed that certain parts of the body were healing up when I was sorting out the emotional issues that are connected with that part of the body. And it's easy to get a start on that by reading one of those books, like Louise Hay's book or Inner Seagull's book. And you can see that, sort of moving forward in life and money worries is knees. And my knees still haven't healed up perfectly. They've still got some damage there, particularly the left one. And even when there's no inflammation, there's still some damage there, when 30 other joints have healed up beautifully, because I still struggle with financial issues and sort of delays and moving forward in life. This is definitely my issue. That is the one main issue that I work on still. But during the healing, I would notice things like the story I've told many times of my ankles, which were the worst. They were so painful, like broken glass was in them. I just couldn't walk some days. And when we moved out from where I was looking after my mother, and it was a very difficult situation, and we went into two separate houses, my ankles healed up completely, never to return. Any problems whatsoever.
If I may ask.
About 2 weeks, they just disappeared completely. All the problems, just went away. 2013. And if you look at ankles, quite often it's a sort of an influence of try to look for something that you're trying not to run away from. And I was trying to stay in the house with my mum and give her full attention, but it wasn't really working. And after that, when she was in a different house, I could still look after her, but I could get away, when things got difficult. And I didn't always have the difficult situation in my face. So a lot of the time with a lot of these issues, you can use techniques like EFT or emotional freedom technique or heart math or whatever which you deal with. And this can often unwind these issues. You can address them on your own while the issues still exist. But sometimes it is just best to get the fuck out of there, and then these issues can resolve. So you have a choice of the two. If you can't get away, then you can use other methods. But it is spectacular when you can shut that down, either on an emotional or a situational level, how quickly things can heal up. And I've seen this in other people too, where, particularly with arthritis, where certain joints are still flaring, and other ones heal up completely. Now, a carnivore diet is fantastic because I see it as almost our gut health being a protection, our body's way of protecting itself against our emotions. So if your gut is in great order, you can probably be emotionally trashed and you won't have any particular physical symptoms. But once the gut gets leaky and the proteins start getting through and the body starts getting confused on a physical level, then it can set off these emotional roots of the problem into physical symptoms. And so healing the gut will take these symptoms down massively, because when you're in a huge flare and in tremendous agony, it's very difficult to think, oh, what's this subtle emotional issue that I've got? You're just really worried about how much pain you're in, right? So a carnivore diet, people go, is it a cure? No, it's just our ancestral diet, and that will take the gut inflammation down to a point where you can think, all right, my knee's twinging a little bit today. Why is that? And now I can think of it. Oh, actually, I'm really worried because I'm about to get sacked from my job, or I think my spouse is about to divorce me, or something like that. I'm not moving forward. Or we're not resolving marital issues. We're not buying the house that we needed to buy, stuff like that. And so maybe the knee can kick off a little bit, but not enough to keep you in tremendous desperation, so that then you can work on the emotional issues, which is, I guess, why I start off with diet with people, to bring the symptoms down a bit, so then you can get to the more interesting stuff of the emotional work that people need to do.
I suppose it takes a little while, because if I look at myself, and then if you don't mind talking about your mom, because I can talk about mine, and I think my issue started from birth with my mom, and I did solve it. I think I was 61 only. I could not go and see her without getting into a state. If I had to go, I couldn't stay more than a week. 4 days would be better, because I was in such a state. I felt so much guilt, because it's whatever's been downloaded in you when you're little. And she never changed, and I could not shift it until 61 years old. I just hope people can shift things like that quicker than what happened to me, because really, do you want to wait until you're 61 until you can shift that? Maybe not. So if you tell me about your mom, I did 3 days with Joe Dispenza in Barcelona, and when I came out of there, I was done. I had forgiven her, but that didn't stop me having to have a heart operation, because it's your heart, and you're there, and you're scared, and you can't let people close to you, because she hurt me a lot and I didn't want to get hurt. And so I closed down my heart completely. I had the great muraille of China around it to make sure I would be protected. And I think you had a bit of the same story with your mom.
Yeah, well, my mum never did anything particularly horrific, in one episode or anything like that. It was just, we were such different characters. She was very conforming. She was very sort of straight and, all about manners and conforming what other people thought of you, and very emotionally closed, whereas I'm completely the opposite, And all through my childhood, that was a kind of problem. So I sort of rebelled as soon as I got any freedom. And then when I had to actually look after her from 2003, when my father died, until she died in 2018, it was funny, because my dad used to say, like, just you wait till you have to look after her. I didn't really realize what he was going through, but it was it was just little things most of the time. It was anything that you did, or anything somebody came into the house, or had a new girlfriend, or I met Detta, who I'm still with now, in 2005, and she was living in it. It was a big house with 3 floors. So my mum had the middle floor, and we had the top and the bottom floors, really. But it was really difficult. I don't know how she put up with it for so long, because it was just always disapproval. It wasn't even saying anything. It was just the look in her eyes, because by that time she had a stroke in like 2006, I think. And so she lost a lot of her speech. She could still speak, but she wasn't particularly eloquent or anything, but she was eloquent with her eyes. And you could just see, all the time, constant disapproval. Detta could just walk up and cook something on the stove, and she didn't cook. She's waited for us to cook for her, but she'd go and look and disapprove, even though it was something she might like. She might have washed the saucepans up in the wrong order or something like that. Really picky things. And they're funny for a day or two. But after 10 years of it, it accumulates and it accumulates. And it's like, will you stop it, And then she's lonely and she feels lonely. You're telling her, well, you're lonely because you drive everyone away. How can you expect to possibly have friends if you're just constantly disapproving of people? It was funny because there was one night when it must have been 2003, 2004, New Year's Eve. And I was at this huge barn conversion place where my father had moved up in 1999, and I'd been living up here for a while. And he bought this place that was so big, it was basically 2 houses, that I moved into there. He hadn't seen me or my son, Tom, my eldest son, Tom, for a long time. And so he moved up and he was great. My dad was amazing. But every 5 minutes he'd sort of come through the door and go, do you know what she's done now? And it was like, she was tormenting him. And I think he died because he was just heartbroken, couldn't take it anymore. He didn't have any friends left up here because he had all his friends and ex-colleagues and whatever down south. And so anyway, from 2003, I was sort of looking after her, and New Year's Eve it was, and I was in the other half of this massive house with the lady I was seeing at the time, who was kind of living there. And we thought, hang on, she's been a bit quiet. There's something wrong. And I went up there and she was there in her underwear, sitting in the bath with a few knives and some pills. And she'd sort of, it was a cry for attention. It was nonsense because, when I came in and she was putting on a show of trying to cut her wrist, it was actually a blunt potato peeler. So obviously she wasn't serious. But there were some packets of pills that had a lot out of them. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to be safe here and call an ambulance. So I called an ambulance, and that shocked her because she didn't want that, and had to get taken out on a stretcher in the snow at sort of 1 o'clock in the morning. And she wasn't ready for that. She was calling my bluff. And anyway, they kind of realized that she hadn't taken anything, which I suspected anyway, but I just sort of, I'll get her carted off just to, just to show her that I'm not putting up with this sort of thing. But then they put her on a sort of psych ward for a bit for evaluation, where she sort of wandered around like the Queen of, I don't know what I'm doing here with these people, these rabble. And the psychiatrist said to me, don't worry, we'll keep her in for a week. We'll get her sorted, and we'll tell you what's going on. And anyway, he was very confident. And at the end of the week, I went to pick her up, and he looked like a broken man. And he said to me, I'm afraid your mother has got so many personality disorders. He said, there's absolutely nothing I can do. Take her home and set your boundaries. And I didn't even really know at the time what he meant by setting boundaries, but it was at least a confirmation for me that I wasn't completely mad, and she was a really difficult character, that she'd broken this poor psychiatrist within a week. And of course she didn't know that anything had happened. She was completely happy with everything and thought that she'd aced all the tests and everybody loved her, And so I took her home, and on it went from there, the disapproval over the years. And so that's a sort of example of how I think some people are just emotional vampires. and there's nothing really you can do about them. I used to spend a lot of time trying to explain to her what was going on and with her, and how she had no friends, and how she wasn't great friends with me, and I was just looking after her because I couldn't connect on any level, because every level of her was just disapproval. And so that would end up in anger, and I'd get sort of angry by the end of the conversation because she was obviously so unresponsive. I remember something my dad often used to say to her: Margie, have you ever been wrong? And she hadn't, not her whole life. I mean, they married in 1952, had me in 1962. I expect that's the first time she ever let him in the bedroom, because she was also incredibly prudish and sort of emotionally retarded in that direction as well. Sex is not something that you talked about with my mother. So, I think when you, it's the old desiderata thing, isn't it? I forget the exact quote, but, changing what you can and not bothering with what you can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I was never going to change my mum, never going to change her. And I was like the little golden boy. She actually loved me, and she was kind of okay with me while my dad was alive, but she was horrible to him. As soon as he died, I became the closest one, and she was the one, I was the one she was horrible to. And that was, often people who are being cared for, they're the worst to the carers, to the closest carers, or even in a marriage, where people are just horrific within the marriage and everybody else thinks they're wonderful. So, I think this is a great lesson to other people. It took me until she died, really. Well, it took me about 10 years to actually, move out from 2003 to 2013. But to actually really resolve it, it took probably until she died in 2018. And, I was 56, 57 at the time. So you're not the only one who's a late bloomer as far as sorting out problems with mothers. They go very deep. And, I think that when you have somebody like that in your life, as the psychiatrist said, you have to set boundaries. And those boundaries are really within yourself. And you have to decide the limit with which you're going to get upset by something. And you turn away before that point, and you just walk away, and you just go and process what's happened. And otherwise it can turn into a horrible feeling of sort of hatred and resentment. But if you accept that these people are like that, and that's what they're supposed to be, that's their chosen path in life, then you can accept them better. And just once you've had enough, then you can walk out the door, and protect yourself. And those are the kind of boundaries he was probably talking about.
That is the one thing that one has to learn. And it took me so long to learn that. I remember one day I was in Paris with my cousins, staying for a week with them. And then I was supposed to go and see my mom in the south of France for another week. And when sometimes you just don't take responsibility I didn't take responsibility for myself. So I didn't feel I could say, look, I really don't want to come to see you. You're so blooming horrible. I mean, it takes me 3 weeks to recover afterwards. So I fell in the stairs. Guess, how do we manage to do things like that? Once you fell in the stairs, I couldn't walk. There was no way I could go to the airport, get into an airplane and go to the south of France. It's amazing what we subconsciously do if we don't want to do something. It's like when my cat had cancer and didn't have very long to live, and I didn't want to leave my cat. And I was working for an airline at the time where I couldn't say, sorry, I'm not coming to work because my cat's got cancer. So I just got a cold within 2 hours, so bad, you can't fly with a cold, and really bad. So how do I manage to create those things? Because I created it.
Yeah, well, so often we create our realities, and also then we hang on to them. I mean, the amount of people who really identify with their illness, and they say, I really want to be healed. But one of the first things to ask is, what are the advantages of your illness? You know, I remember a friend of mine with multiple sclerosis, and it wasn't that bad. It's quite mild, but you know, it was in danger of progressing if she carried on the way she did with what she was eating and what she was doing. And you know, I kept pressing her on it. You know, why wouldn't you want to heal? Why wouldn't you want to? Oh, you know, I enjoy this too much. I like my bread. I like, you know, all of this sort of thing. But I felt there was something deeper. And eventually I pressed her, and she just came out with it and said, well, if I heal, then I won't have any benefits. How will I live? And you're like, wow, you know, some people actually really hold on to their illness because it's less frightening than going out and having to make your way in life. And so once the sort of sickness benefits start coming in, you're kind of kept, not in a very good luxurious way, but at least you can eat your crap food that keeps you sick. And there we go. You get attached to, people identify with their illness, don't they? My arthritis, my multiple sclerosis, my cancer. You know, they love it. They love it.
They do love it. When I was on holiday in Greece lately, I did ask about 10 people. I said, I have a friend, I was thinking of you, who had rheumatoid arthritis. And by changing his diet and taking responsibility for himself, cured himself completely. But you're going to have to give up alcohol and everything you eat and all that. I said, would you be prepared to do that? And out of 10 people, I had 9 no and 1 maybe. And they all want that pill. And they're very happy with their pill. And the little man in the white coat is like there was God. And now there's the little man in the white coat. There's not much difference. And people don't want to take responsibility for themselves. So whether it's to look into their emotions, which really would help, or changing their food or doing whatever that's going to help them, it's not something we learn in this society. Do we learn that? No.
No, we don't. We're taught to rely on other people. We have our sovereignty taken away in all areas, don't we? And that's what's happening all over the place. And I don't want to get your channel pulled by talking about everything else that's happening at the moment. But, you know, the holding on to it, it's a really interesting thing that happens to pretty much everybody, and they're not willing to look into other ways to heal. You know, you see it so often where people sometimes even get close and they go, oh yeah, but I'm not giving up my coffee with cream in it. And it goes, such a small part of the day. Why can't you just give it up? You know, give it up and see what happens. And if it's no real benefit, then add it back in again. But they're not willing to look at it, and they're wanting one pill. Well, this is a big thing for me as well, a huge emotional thing for me that I didn't figure out again till about 2013, was where it would really, really upset me when people weren't getting better. And I thought, well, how can they not want to? This was the most stressful thing for me. Friends who were ruining themselves, you know, eating crap, and even the ones who thought that it was very healthy, particularly my transcendental meditation friends here, you know, the spiritual ones who are on these awful Southern Indian diets and getting loads of cancer and stuff. And why can't I get through to them? Oh, meat is just so unsattvic, they call it. You'll never get enlightened if you eat meat and all this bullshit. Now, that used to really stress me out. And then I had to realize, you know, my friend Mighty Goodson, who works with us still and is wonderful on all the emotional healing. And she said to me one day, well, you know, you ask yourself when you're talking to these people and trying to change them, have they asked you? I thought it was just so profound, because I thought, well, no, actually. And it came to me where I had to do a load of tapping, a load of EFT on it and whatever, and a load of Byron Katie's, the work on it. And when that emotional block shifted, it was so blissful. I couldn't get up off the bed for about 3 hours. It was like a huge weight had been lifted, but I didn't think it was a weight because I thought it was me being really virtuous and caring for everybody, where it was actually me being a real busybody and poking my nose in where it didn't belong and not accepting people for the path they were on. Because people have those paths, maybe they choose them before they get born. I don't know. But, maybe it's some karmic thing. I don't know. But we can't judge them on it. If they want us to help them to heal in our own specialist area, then that's fantastic when they come to us. And that quenches my thirst for that sort of, helping people now. And I don't have to go and attack people in restaurants and in the middle of supermarkets, and start telling them what's in their trolley or what's on their plate. I mean, when I look at it in my book, which was called Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. And it was, and it being that sick brought me to a load of realizations that I would never otherwise have had. So who am I to judge? If somebody is on pills and they're still really sick, and some people come off onto a carnivore diet and heal straight away, maybe they've got something else to do in life. But if some people put themselves through this and they won't change and they stay sick for another 3, 4, 5 years, but then again, what are they going to learn in that time about themselves? They might learn an awful lot. They might not. They might just die because of all the chemicals in them, and the desperation of being sick for that long. Or like me, they might learn a whole load of things and come out the other side with a whole load of knowledge that they can help other people with, and they can help their children with, and generations to come. And now I'm by no means perfect yet. I'm still working on stuff, but I'm real open about that. And I'm always looking for ways that I'm wrong or ways that I'm harming myself, instead of stuck in a single paradigm like the medical system is. Like, you're sick, here's a pill, that fixes you. If it doesn't work, then it's incurable. And that they don't get any further than that. But me, I don't like to see things like that at all.
You've helped me a lot with trying to help people all the time that haven't asked for anything. And thinking about it, I thought, well, why do I do that? And it is coming from a guilt feeling I've had with Mommy Darling. And because I was never there to help her the way she wanted and all that. And it's that old guilt that stays in there and made me try to help people who never ask for anything. And it was really reading your book again this year, the third part of it, because 2 years ago, I looked at the first and the second part. I was a bit bored with the third part, and it made all the difference because suddenly I got it all just like that, and I loved it. Hence, I decided to do this YouTube video with you because of it, because that's what I do now. I work on people's emotion, and I teach them how to be able to self-regulate themselves and self-awareness. Because if you're aware of who you are, you can do a journaling. Me, I could do a journaling and say, for example, for a little thing, what do you do in France when there's traffic? Oh, you're French, you're in your car, you're there, and you learn from little. Where, ooh, crétin, are you going to move? And all that. And they used to get in a state. Is that me? Of course not. Is that what I learned from being in a car with people when I was a kid? For sure. Do I still do it today? No. No. That went quicker than problem with my mother and all that. But I mean, I can see that there's so many recurring problems. And if we're not able to look into it and see why we're doing it, how can it go away? And then I got this amazing thing that I can take people who are going to feel negatively, and with heart mat, just doing breathing, I can take them to a neutral state. And once they learn, they can do it on their own. And from there, it gives them the amazing choice that they can actually, instead of reacting stupidly, they can choose how they're going to show up and how they want to react. And to me, that's fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all about how we react to different circumstances. I mean, the analogy you brought up there is one that I love of, you know, the two guys in a traffic jam and whatever, and one guy's sitting there listening to music and one guy's blasting the horn and swearing. It's the same traffic jam. And I think it's, you know, it's a funny one. I had one about 2 days ago, and this is it was nuts. And it really got to me. It really got past my defenses. But we were buying the house that we're in, and we couldn't get a mortgage. We couldn't find another place to rent. And a wonderful friend came up with the money and lent us the money to buy this house. I mean, it was amazing. And it was going to complete last Friday. Everything was sorted finally. And at the same time, I also had news that the last, we were selling our rental properties. We had a few rental properties, and they didn't have much equity, but we'd had enough of being landlords. And so we put them through auction, and we got like not much money for each one, you know, over and above the mortgage. So it wasn't like great. We've got house prices for, you know, full house prices for 6 houses or whatever. That would have been lovely. I'd be fine now. But we had just a little bit, and we were kind of paying debts and sorting things out, fixing the cars, that kind of thing. And we bought a couple of caravans, a couple of cheap caravans. I thought, right, we can actually have a caravan renovation business. I don't want to renovate houses anymore because I don't like solicitors. Things fall through. Mortgage companies are not reliable. And we've got the caravans, and the last house would have given us sort of enough to renovate these caravans, start a little business. So there I was last week. The last house, we got an offer on it where we'd only get about a couple of £1,000, but hooray, done it, you know? And it's a really rickety old house. It's got a real character in there, but he lives in squalor. He's a heroin addict. There's nothing much I can do about it. I've got to know him, and I've taken him round to his meetings when he forgets about them, his appointments, you know, to get his rent sorted and all of that. And I've got to know him. He's a hilarious character, but a nightmare as a tenant. And so this was reflected in the price. It was our last sort of crappiest house. Anyway, I had 1 month mortgage arrears because I shut down the standing order. And I thought, right, I'll just phone up and pay that, but it's going to complete on the 23rd of this month, October 2022. We'll be fine from then. Everything will be fine. Got all of that out of our system. So then I phoned up and I looked, he said, what's the mortgage number? And I read out the mortgage number. And I noticed that we owed more on the mortgage than I'd actually agreed for the sale. Now, on all my spreadsheets, I'd had all the other houses perfect, but this one, for some reason, I'd miscalculated what we owed on the mortgage. So that means that to actually even get out of this sale without letting the house go through, to let the house go through, I'd have to find about £7,000. To not let the house go through, I'm going to have to find about £2,000 just to pay off the solicitor's fees and the other fees. And I'm just devastated. And I'm thinking, I don't even know quite what I'm going to do about it at the moment. But then I thought, okay, why has this happened? You know, and it was a really horrific one because it really hit me. And I thought, fuck, you know, I was really shattered like 2 days ago with this. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to reframe this. And I'm going to have to realize that maybe I'm going to have to keep the house. Maybe, you know, house prices are going to shoot up. Maybe I will be able to take care of this guy over the winter if his boiler explodes or something, better than the new landlord. Maybe now I will be able to I will be able to help him out with his electrics things and whatever, because but either way, I'm going to have to sell these caravans. Now that's annoying. And I think, oh no, and one of them we were going to use in the spring to give the kids some holidays. And I think, what's my heart really in it? Restoring caravans. Is that me? Nah, not really. And if somebody once said, you know, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a hell no. So if you have doubts. So I get sucked into things sometimes that I shouldn't really be doing. And I do too many things at once. There's an expression, isn't there? A man who chases two rabbits catches neither of them. And this is what I was trying to do. And I'm trying to sort of say, oh, right, we need some extra income now. We don't have the houses. We'll renovate the caravans and blah, blah, blah. And of course, I tried to get involved with another musician with that, you know, who knows more how to do it. And of course, he's a musician. You know, how reliable are we as musicians? No, we want to play music. So we never did anything with the caravans anyway. So we've got to sell those and that. And then I think I've got to let go of them in about 5 minutes. And you've just got to renovate it. Not renovate. I'm thinking of houses to reframe things when things like that happen to you and not freak out. Yes, I did freak out big time for about 5-10 minutes. And then it tapered off over the next couple of hours where I started to get more ideas of, now, why has this happened? Why have I been left with this one house? You know, it will become evident in future. Something will happen and I'll realize why I got stuck with this house. And it's always you get what you need, not necessarily what you want or what you imagine. And I've seen that so many times that when things go completely arse-shaped, it can often be a gateway to something even better. But I still do have that male freak out. You know, that, oh, fuck this, and punch walls and whatever. And then it sort of calms down. There's nothing wrong with having a bit of a freak out like that. But then as long as you sit back and reframe it, and it's been a difficult couple of days, you know, reframing that. But now here I am smiling about it. It's just a ridiculous error of writing down the wrong figure in a column has lost me getting rid of my house, has lost me getting £2,000 and had me getting rid of 2 caravans. And I'm like, oh God, you know. And yeah, again, it's just funny in the end. In a couple of years, I'll just laugh about it. So, you know, what the hell? But it's about reframing things, isn't it? And as quickly as possible before they really devastate your health.
Yeah, it just looked like you made a decision and you didn't expect that to happen. So the decision's been made. Now it is all planned in your head or my head or anybody's head, and then we expect it to happen. And then, whew, no, not today, Josephine. So there we go. Mia would be there doing my heart math, breathing into my heart and doing freeze frame if necessary. And probably what would come to me is something like let go. And probably to you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's really a question of being flexible at all times, but we like certainty. Me, I certainly do like certainty. I'm here, I say, okay, well, I'm here, I'm not here. Where do I want to go? Oh, I'd like to go to Mexico. And oh, if the shit hit the fan, will I be happy in Mexico? I don't know. Am I happy here? Yeah, I need the sun. Well, you know, I need the sun. You know why? So there's no sun here. Yeah, I know people. What's more important? Sometimes you have to wonder, is it the sun? Or is it knowing people that could help you if there's a problem?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's why I'm still in the north of England. I'm from the south of England. I moved up here in 1986 for 6 months, and I'm still here because I love the people. And also I have, you know, 2 families that I've had up here. but I think the expectation thing that you were talking about, this is very important. One of the most common things I ever get asked when I first consult with somebody, how long is it going to take me to get better?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? And you can get enormous benefits, and then you can have relapses, and then enormous benefits and relapses, and it can wind down in waves. The body does what it does, and then it takes a break, and then it does what it does. And, you know, it's very common with the carnivore diet as well, where people get benefits, and then suddenly they have a problem, and they go, oh, well, that's down to the diet. You know, it's our ancestral diet. It's not a problem. It's some problem with whatever poisons you filled yourself with the plants over the decades, some emotional thing, some stress, something else, not sleeping. But, you know, on that level, of the diet. Just, keep on with it, keep it clean. And don't worry if you don't heal as fast as the person who you read on one Facebook group. Somebody came up on my rheumatoid and psoriatic arthritis Facebook group a little while ago, telling this amazing story of how she'd completely and utterly reversed everything in 2 weeks. And I was actually a little bit, I had a bit of trepidation about it, because it was lovely to see, and I put a comment and I said, look, this is fantastic, but please don't everybody else expect that this is going to happen. This is a kind of 1 in 100 thing, that the whole thing shuts down in 2 weeks. But actually, as suspected, about a month after that, she did get some problems, and then they calmed down. And then a month after that, she got, and that's how it goes. But it's very rare to get rid of absolutely all symptoms in 1 week. She was newly diagnosed and she hadn't taken any meds. If you've had rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years and you've been full of meds, you are not going to switch everything off in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. Your body has an awful lot of work to do. If you do everything and utterly perfectly, maybe, one thing that Jeremy often mentions, some sort of rough guideline is 1 month for every year you've been sick. And if you do everything right, maybe that's a good expectation. At least it shows people they're not going to get well in 2 or 3 days. So yeah, this absolute expectation and impatience, you've messed up over decades. You want a pill that's going to just cure you, but no, this is not a desperate diagnosis. When you get one of these diagnoses, it's not desperate. It's a call to action, and you have to get up off your lazy ass and do some work. And I hadn't done any work my whole life, particularly. I just drifted around doing what I wanted, riding motorbikes, playing drums, going fishing, and doing the odd scam in between to make a bit of money. And, I hadn't really had any sort of responsibility whatsoever. And so when that hit me in 2010, my personality was not one that could deal with it very well. So I had to really, really work emotionally to find a way to really study the right things, really keep going at it, and not let up. And this was so important in my healing when I finally, did address the emotional side and really went for it. But it is something you have to take very seriously. You can't do it sort of for 2 minutes one day and then say it doesn't work.
It's a bit like getting a six-pack.
Yeah.
And if I work with a client, I say, well, you have to work. You choose however long, but you're going to have to work every day, twice a day. And if you want to do 3 minutes or 5 minutes every time, your choice, but you have to do it. It's like if I say, Phil, I would like a 6-pack, please. And you say, you're going to go to the gym. I say, you must be joking. Please go to the gym for me, would you? It's not going to work, isn't it? They have to work.
Yeah, well, yes and no. 6-packs is an interesting concept, because 99% of them are made in the kitchen. Like I had the rock and roll lifestyle of the summer caught up with me, and I had a bit of a flare recently in one knee, and I had to really address it, and I had to cut all the dairy out and stop drinking alcohol and really cut everything down. And so here I am, skinnier than the last time you saw me, and I do actually have my abs out. And I've done no exercise whatsoever, but it did take work. It wasn't 5 minutes, it did take work, but none of it was exercise. But, abs are made in the kitchen pretty much. But, it does take dedication if you want to do that, which wasn't really my aim, but I'm happy to have them back again. It feels nice. Yeah.
But that is something people need to do, because with me, they build resilience, but to be able to become resilient, you need to work at it every day. And then you do become resilient. What do I mean by resilient? If this is a battery and you always got depleting emotion, it drains really quickly. If you learn to stop the drain and choose how you're going to feel, that doesn't imply to say a draining emotion is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just appreciating you've got it, And I think journaling, just to make sure you understand the why, and then going on to the 0 point, and then choosing what you want. And then once you've done the journaling and you do the breathing, and when you do the breathing, you get resilient, but not in one day. But after 6 months, you can take a lot more than you could take before. You can handle situation you couldn't before. But people want to be able to do that. I see people who say, you know, somebody like me, okay, I used to fly airplane. One day they say, oh, you're not medically fit any longer. So here you go. From one day to the next, your life changed 100%. I'm not talking about the heart operation that was freaking me out so much. I waited to be nearly dead before I did accept to go. But that did help me, like rheumatoid arthritis helped you, because it helped me understand. I had to go and look into all that. What is it I wanted to do? What could I do for myself? Taking 100% responsibility. I cannot give somebody 50%. I cannot say, okay, Phil, I give you 50%, I take 50%, I take 100%, you take 100%, and we can work. And it makes a huge difference in one's life. And then if people want to move on and change and become greater part of what they were, or would they think, no, I can't do this, I can't do that. We can do anything we want. If only we got the heart and the mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think something you've touched on there, you know, the perseverance. Now, how do people persevere? In the early days of my healing, I would jump from one thing to another, from one day to the next, to the week, you know, and never give anything a chance. And the one thing I say to clients, and I do in my subtraction method course as well, and particularly on my autoimmune Zoom club meetings, you know, the most important thing I think for people is confidence that they're on the right path. And how do they get that? Well, it requires a lot of study at the start of it. You know, I say to people, don't just take my word for it and then go away and feel okay and then have a little bit of a blip and think, right, I'm going to try something else. Go and look on different groups. Go and look on paleo groups, you know, for the diet. Go and look on keto groups. Go and look on carnivore groups. And you'll very quickly see people gravitating towards fewer plants and more meat. And the nearer they get to that, the quicker the results they have. Mm-hmm. And you'll see it over and over again. And then look at anthropology. Like, for example, my recent Red Pill Buddhas episode with Mary Ruddick, who goes around the world living with these indigenous tribes and exactly what they do eat, you know, and they do not live on beautiful fruits and berries and stuff. You know, even at the equator, they're living on 90% meat, and up in the Arctic, 100%. And so look at our ancestry. What did we eat? What do the people eat who don't have these problems? And then you get the confidence, right, that is the diet that I eat while I'm healing. And, you know, that's going to give me the best chance. Once you know that, you won't keep having little blips and thinking, oh, maybe I need a bit of broccoli or something like that. So then the same thing happens with the emotional thing. You know, start to look at case studies, start to look at the results that somebody like Byron Katie has got. Start to look at videos of testimonials of people who've been to Joe Dispenza's retreats and used his techniques. You know, these are all in the same kind of ballpark, but start to look at people who have come through this. And it's not just one or two lunatics, you know, there are hundreds, thousands, millions of people out there. And you have access now with YouTube and all sorts of other things to see their testimonials. And these people aren't lying. They've got no reason to lie. And when you see that they have healed by working on their emotional side, and you see more and more of them saying the same thing and common threads coming up, then you will have confidence, you know, in that's the path you should take instead of trying it for a day, say, oh, it didn't work for me and it's probably a load of nonsense, and you forget about it. Research people who've got there, you know, in every field. You know, I'm a drummer. I watch the best drummers in the world. You know, I don't watch really, really crap drummers who sort of go, right, I don't like that much, I'm going to give up. Oh, well, maybe I'll give up drums as well because it's no fun. You've got to persevere and you've got to get to a certain level where it's fun and you can see the progress. This is the same in any endeavor of life, whether it's learning what our ancestral diet is, how we can reprogram our hard drive, if you like, you know, to work completely differently with these techniques. And it's a slow, gradual process. There's an old thing, isn't there, about the Buddhists, you know, about consciousness and increasing your consciousness, to do with their saffron robes. Like they get a white sheet and they dye it in some saffron dye and then they hang it out to dry and it's barely off white. But then they do it again and they do it again and they do it again. And when they've dyed this thing about 20 times and left it out in the sun, then they've got their saffron robes. And it takes a while. You've got to keep on going into the dye and coming out again and going into the dye. And there's no substitute. There's no shortcut for that, really.
All those things work amazingly well. I know because I've been there, got a T-shirt, got much better. And I've done some Power of 8 with a group where we do energy healing. I do energy healing that I cannot name because I haven't subscribed to it. But like with my niece in Colombia, that is 70% disabled. And it's amazing. We do one session, she's well. I did work with a chap, that's a different chap. He wanted to work on it as well. And he had a problem. He had to have the bloodletting every 3 months. So he had too many red cells. So we did that once. And I could see on the phone, not in person. And I could see he had a little problem. It wasn't quite that. So we did it again a second time. And it's been more than 3 years now. And his doctor still doesn't understand how he never had to have another bloodletting ever since. It's amazing. And that is just energy and attention, intention, and sending love and helping to raise the vibration and the frequency. To see what I thought with my mom, I thought she was always depressed. So if we take always depressed, the lowest vibration there is, so the only thing she would do is get angry. What does anger does? It gives you more energy. But the problem is, so they enjoy it. She enjoyed it for sure. But from this vibration, if I'd known better, which I didn't at the time, she probably could have gone to the higher vibration after the anger. But because I had no idea, nobody ever did it, she had to go back to depression. So all she did in her life was going depression, anger, depression, anger. Well, would anybody think, well, maybe the next vibration we could try, and then the next vibration, and instead of looking at her and being angry because she's angry and you're fed up with watching it for years and years, use it intelligently to try to get her out of there. I don't know if it's feasible.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that, with the sort of bouncing between depression and anger. It sounds like you're describing my mum too. Yeah. Very common when I think about it.
Because when they depress, the only time they get, if they get angry, they get a burst of energy before it comes back down. And it would be a way of shifting them to higher vibration, higher vibration, higher vibration. look, it's too late. Mine's gone, yours gone. Somebody else can try, I suppose. Well, thank you so much, Phil. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, not really. I mean, just to stress to people that if they're caught up in supplements and pills and powders and even diet, just look deeper. There's a lot more to it, and this is the way. This is the way. Looking at your emotions and stuff like that. This is the way that you can really come out better the other side, instead of just thinking, "Oh, I wish I could feel like I did before I got sick." Why not feel better? You know, and know more about yourself, and be calmer and more resilient, as you say. This is the opportunity. Use any sort of physical or mental issues as opportunities, because nothing stays exactly the same. People think, "Oh, I'm going to be like this forever." Even if it gets worse, you're not going to be like that forever, right? Everything changes, and hopefully you can always change for the better. And so many people have. Go look at some inspiring stories. Go and see what's happened to people. Keep on watching them. Keep on watching them. People say these days, "Oh, you need studies. You need studies. Anecdotes are useless." I think it's totally the opposite. I think studies are taking away our sovereignty, taking away our intuition for how to heal ourselves. And that the incredible anecdotes that are out there. You know, I mean, Sean Baker, doesn't he? You know, the carnivore dog says the plural of anecdotes is data. And there are so many out there now. Just go listen to them, keep your confidence up, see what other people have done, and follow in their footsteps. And then create your own paths. And maybe, you never know, down the line, you'll be somebody helping hundreds or thousands of people as well. And that's incredibly rewarding. So this is how it's paid on. This is how it always was in the tribes. You know, you learn something, you pay it on. You didn't have to have letters after your name. So, you know, just look into everything, not just one little aspect of health. Look into everything.
That's wonderful, Phil. Thank you so much. And I think I will put down there where people can find you if they look for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll just mention it quickly. I mean, the thing I'm the most proud of is our work with the Red Pill Revolution team, and Jeremy Ayres, John Gusty, Graham Norbury, and Ben Hunt, and our new addition, the Red Pill pharmacist, Graham Atkinson, who is doing some amazing work. And you can find that at the redpillrevolution.com, where we go into everything, you know, every aspect of all of this and more. And for me, you can find me under Phil Escott, just my name, on YouTube. And if you are suffering from any autoimmunity, consider popping along and joining my autoimmunity club. We have a lot of fun. It's very irreverent, some great support there. And we're all very open and talk about things where we can't really put it out on YouTube either. So it is behind a paywall. However, there's 30 days for free, and you get my course for free as well if you sign up to that. And so you can run away with all my freebies, get 2 free calls. And if you don't like it, you can just run away and just rob me blind. I don't mind, as long as you come along and join us. And so, you know, I'll send the links so Anne can put these below. And Anne, thank you so much. I mean, it's been great to talk to you over the years, and you've been such an inspiration too. And a hell of a lot of fun. We have a lot of laughs when we chat.
You've been such an inspiration to me. Because if I do remember, I think it was in 2020 when we first had a chat together, and you read to me something about the contre-indication of, if you remember, side effects in English. And you made me laugh so much. If I think about it now, I'm still under my chair laughing about, you just had, you know, your heart open in half and all that. And I said, you look at this, and all it does to you is it's going to give you a heart attack. It's just what you want. And when I think of it, I'm still giggling like there's no tomorrow. And you told me about Baron Katie, which I didn't know. And you did some Baron Katie on me. And that is something that is extraordinary, because at the second question, are you sure? So I would recommend that. And I'm so grateful that Phil put me on that path, because you helped me a lot. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm so honored. And you've nailed something there, really. And I think it's a great point to close on. Humor. You know, we're in some dark times at the moment, and people who are ill are obviously in their dark times too. You have to retain a sense of humor because it is hilarious. You know, most things are hilarious. Here I am laughing about this craziness with the house the other day. And it's taken me a couple of days, but eventually you've got to look at what a complete plonker I was. And you've got to laugh at yourself. You've got to laugh at other people. And you've got to laugh at package inserts on drugs as well, haven't you, when you actually read them? You know, everything should have humor in it. You know, the body, the mitochondria, everything enjoys really laughing a lot. So do it a lot.
Is it you who were talking to me about people who had, I believe, the big C, and they got cured by only watching fun films?
Yeah, I believe that is a couple of times that's happened. Jeremy knows the stories better on that one. I think he's mentioned them, but yeah.
That was wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Phil, and have a wonderful time.
You too, Anne. Thank you very much too.
Thank you.